Hello, everyone. This is the Paint the Town Red podcast, and my name is Chance. Today, we have a very special guest. I recently was on Instagram scrolling, and I saw Lucas, and I said, you know what? I'm going to make a post about him and see if he'll do my podcast. I challenged him to the podcast, and now he's here. So we're really excited to hear you, Lucas.
Thank you for having me, man. I'll go on anyone's show, but I've never gotten the special video shout out request. Who am I to deny that? It's a pleasure to be here, man. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation today because, man, it's an exciting time to be in politics, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it's the best time to be in politics. And we say that every year. It's like this year's the most important year. But this is something different. This is not just like one single election, a presidential election, even. This is a major shift in the political tide. And what we are is America first. Now, Lucas, would you give us a definition, a loose definition of kind of what America first represents to you?
America first at its core, and this is going to deviate from what people like Nick kind of think, and maybe even yourself. I think it's important to preface this because I don't subscribe to any one ideology. What I subscribe to is putting our country before everything else, no matter the cost. That's not to say that I don't see race. I think I definitely do. But putting America first is not about like, oh, guys, we need to do this or we need to do that. It's not one specific policy. And I think that's why we're winning right now, because America first is a cultural wave. Anyone who is aligned with Western civilization, anyone who is aligned, really truly aligned with America and is not bought out, is not paid for, is going to align with our mission. It's about putting Americans first. It's about getting rid of the legal and illegal invasion of this country. We need borders. I don't know how that's controversial in 2025 to say that we need borders, but we've had this radical indoctrination of people in America. And this is not just a left issue. The neoliberals and neoconservatives are also just as guilty. So what is America first to me? America first is a populist movement, a post-racial unifying populist movement to preserve Western civilization. I think that's the best way to say it.
Yep, I totally agree with you. It's kind of like akin to you're running a football down the field. Are you just going to juke right every single time? No, you're going to get tackled. They're going to figure out you're just going to go right no matter what. And they're going to tackle you and you'll get destroyed. You have to go left and right. You got to zig and you got to zag. America first represents that well. There are topics that range all from, different political areas. Some people would even say Nick is left leaning in some ways. Recently he was talking about health care and subsidized health care and things like this. So, this is it's very interesting time. America first. That's it. Put America first. Seek truth. What works? That's kind of why when I talk to people who are real logical type people about I'm Christian, I kind of classify myself as a Christian nationalist. And when I'm talking to people who are not believers or not religious, and I'm trying to argue the fact of Christianity to them, I say, look, rather you want to believe it or not, let's just look at what works with boots on the ground. The organization that takes the most amount of people from a life of drugs and degeneracy is the Christian church. The religion that has ran Western civilization and has gifted us with being the rulers of this world is very much Christian values and the church. We have to give that alone right there should convince you, hey, maybe you should pay a little bit attention to what the Bible says and what all these good Christian folks are saying, right?
I provide a very interesting perspective to that because this is, my journey with God. I mean, obviously, I'm wearing a cross right now. My journey with God was interesting because I grew up in a house where, there really was no pressure to conform to any one religion. And so I kind of flirted with religiosity, but due to kind of the sort of take it at face value approach I had to our current systems, I kind of trusted in science, right? Because I thought science was so infallible. I trusted in the systems that raised me because they had never failed me, right? And my journey to finding God and actually to find Jesus Christ was really centered around psychedelics. I took mushrooms and that really opened up my mind to the possibilities. And maybe that's a little controversial to say, but if you actually look into, okay, who are we? Why are we here? And where are we going? That's the question every religion attempts to answer, right? The
Right.
overwhelming majority of these answers point back to across all religions, whether that's the Abrahamic religions, so Christianity, even Judaism to an extent, Islam, as well as Eastern philosophies, they all point back towards this sort of oneness. Or even if you want to go back further to like a Gnostic worldview, the concept of monad, right? And I think Jesus Christ is really a focal point to remind everyone, he says it himself, the kingdom of heaven is within. Jesus Christ was a reminder to humans of what we can be, right? Of what we could be. And I think that we live in a society that has replaced God with money. And that might be the most sacrilegious thing of all.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Speaking of money, we all love it. You do a little financial stuff on your show. You can't live without money. It's like money, the love of money is the root of all evil, but not money itself. And it's nice to love money. It's nice to have money. Yeah, you talk a little bit about financials and stuff like that. What is kind of the America First take on kind of our financial system right now and some of the changes that they want to see happen?
The issue with the financial system is that you can't save it, and the same way that you can't save America. And I think that's important to preface what I'm about to say with. You cannot save America in its current form. Make America great again, unfortunately, has failed. The only way forward is to put America first, right? So we have to let go of the old and broken ideals of a society that ran off infinite money printing. And a lot of people, know the story behind the Federal Reserve. We all understand how that fits into the unfortunate reality of what we exist in. The financial system only does one thing in 2025, and that is to extract money through the financialization of everything and to create a hyper gambling degenerate ecosystem. Coming from someone who was an active participant and promoter in this ecosystem for the better part of a decade, I can tell you, because I've been in the rooms with people who are passing legislation at a state and national level, who are in these markets, regulating these markets. I know people who have been subpoenaed and extradited to the United States for what was really billions of dollars worth of wash trading, making, and fraud. I need you guys to understand that this government from top down has completely corrupted itself, and the money is not fixable. We need to let the US dollar collapse, which unfortunately is what they want to happen. But we actually have a small moment here to grab power during the chaos and prevent a digital dollar.
Yeah, that's a good point. Prevent a digital dollar?
So I have some good friends here in Florida. We passed legislation in 2023, Governor DeSantis' team banning central bank digital currencies in the state of Florida. Shout out to the Florida Blockchain Business Association. And that's a huge thing. People don't understand the kind of human rights violations that are currently ongoing in this country and the human rights violations that are being planned by the financial elite.
That's interesting. I'm really interested to hear about that. So essentially, it's kind of like the banks are trying to take advantage of the collapsing of the dollar and try to form their own digital currencies?
Well, it's not just that the banks are trying to take advantage of it. In fact, I would go so far as to argue that the banks themselves have manufactured the crisis in confidence in the dollar. They have printed the money to absolutely nothing. People want to say that gold and Bitcoin are on these insane bull runs. And while that may be true, they're not looking at it the right way, because the measuring stick is the thing that's actually losing value. It's not that the stock market, Bitcoin, or gold is worth so much money and the economy is so great. What's really happening is the US dollar is losing value faster than ever. We are down over 10% in the last year. Your purchasing power has declined by 10%. Real world inflation, minimum 200 to 300%, and sometimes more for things like groceries and electrical bills. No one in their right mind can look at any of this and say, this is sustainable. And I'm not sure how far you want to go into all this, but I can explain exactly what's happening and why 2026 is the breaking point.
No, I'd love to hear it. Go into it. I need to know.
So people need to understand our financial system, and by default, the American way of life for the last 80-something years has been fueled by infinite growth. Capitalism requires infinite growth. We are in the late stage metastasization of capitalism. So what's happening right now is that Japan, which has been the source of a lot of this free credit, is drying up. There's this thing called the yen carry trade. Basically, Japan has been offering interest-free loans for decades, and they have been taking this money and bringing it to the U.S. stock market to bring it to U.S. bonds and treasuries. This has created an infinite money glitch on top of the quantitative easing and money printing that's done by the Federal Reserve. You can check the amount of money printing that's being done by the M2 and M1 money supply charts. You can pull those up for later if you want. It is a vertical chart. Over $3 out of $5 in circulation were printed since 2020. People don't understand. They are going to have to essentially double the money supply again in 2026. And I'm going to tell you right here and now, come back to this, what's going to happen. Donald Trump has showed his hand. He's going to install a loyalist to the Federal Reserve. They are going to lower interest rates to zero or sub-zero, and they are going to print trillions of dollars because it's the only way to keep the Ponzi going. If the Ponzi stops for even a moment, all of this ends tomorrow.
Wow. What a plot twist. Man, that would be interesting. Yeah, I mean, we kind of know the writing's on the wall. I mean, just like you said, we live in this capitalistic system that seems to be just profiting and profiting and profiting and taking in debt and taking in debt. It's like when do we have to pay the debt? I mean, we have so much we have trillions of dollars in debt. The debt is so high it surpassed just this term. It has now surpassed our military budget. What are we going to do? We can't even protect. We're not even going to be able to protect ourselves. I mean,
I can tell you, I know what they're planning. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, and look. Okay, I'm a little less certain of this than what I just said before. Keep that in mind. Grain of salt here. This is a little more speculation on my part. The thing is that they're not going to pay the debt back. Okay, they're not going to pay it back. The politicians know they can't pay it back. The banks know they can't pay it back. The creditors and debtors. Everyone knows they can't pay it back. The thing is that America is actually the least screwed, if you can believe it, of everyone else. I mean, China is equally as screwed, if not more screwed, because their Ponzi is just real estate instead of being an everything Ponzi, right? It's funny. The Chinese dream is still to get their money out of America, out of China, and put it in America. It's like, dude, come on. But the politicians, the banks, they know they can't pay it off. So what are they going to do? Here's my 2 cents. I think they're going to reevaluate the price of gold. I think they are going to print a ridiculous amount of money, revalue the price of gold, use Bitcoin as collateral, and create a new digital dollar. I think that Bitcoin was co-opted and is now a tool of the financial elite to fool the population into thinking they're actually getting any kind of decentralized free money. Bitcoin is not as free and decentralized as you think it is.
Oh, wow. So I was okay. Interesting. Yeah, we heard the Russian financial advisor for I don't know, one of their branches of, their economic system. And he was talking about what the U.S. is going to attempt to do, devalue the dollar, switch all our debt into the altcoins, and then try to offload some of their debt that way, pay it off when it's low valued, and then increase the value later. So Bitcoin, so you think so Bitcoin's not the way to go then? You're not a Bitcoin guy.
I'm still a Bitcoin guy because at the end of the day, this thing's going to tens of millions of dollars. This thing is probably going to be worth more than anything on planet Earth. And I'll tell you, people think they're late to Bitcoin. The truth is, we're still in the first inning. I know that's a crazy thing to say. Look, when I first started buying Bitcoin, it was under $1,000, under $2,000. So, I understand it's done 100 and something X from that position. But look, there's a lot of money in the world. Bitcoin is still in its infancy. If we expand the timeline out, let's say to 2050 to 2060, what do you think the world is going to trust? Because ultimately, people need to understand value is derived from belief. It's not derived from anything real, at least not in our current system, right? So we have a speculative economy, a speculative market. Value is derived ultimately from what people believe has value. I believe that Bitcoin will have value. I believe that gold will have value. I believe that land will have value. People will always have belief in this if there's enough people who say this is worth something. And the thing with gold, and this is where I think gold is a little bit weaker than Bitcoin, and this is where I will give Bitcoin credit. If we had a system tomorrow where the banks closed, right? And, my family, half of them being from Greece, I remember the bank closures, waiting in line for 2-3 hours to pull out 60 euros. It's horrible. So if we had a bank failure tomorrow, nobody can tell you where to put your Bitcoin, right? You can always send it somewhere across borders to anyone. You can even burn all your records, destroy your wallet, and memorize your seed phrase and access your money one flight away in another country, and they'll never be able to prove anything. So Bitcoin is still very important, but it is still a tool of financialization at this point.
Wow. That is a lot of interesting stuff. I need to brush up on I just have a Robinhood account that I throw a few $100s in every payday,
Look,
but it builds fast. I'm surprised how fast it builds. And my thing is I'll invest. I invested in Palantir early and I made a lot of money on it. And then I found out about Palantir, and then I'm like, so then I had to sell it all, which I still did. And I made some money, so that was cool. And then AMD, all these companies. So I'm like, man, how do I get it guilt free? And then I'm finding out Bitcoin was created by people who are on the Jeffrey Epstein payroll.
Listen, I think you have a noble intent with this, but there's one thing you need to realize, and this is, if there's one thing you guys take away from listening to this, to listening to me, who has sacrificed the better part of 10 years to understand at the deepest level what makes our society tick, what are the systems of power, how does the money impact our society, how does the financial system work? It is all unethical. It is all a grift. Everyone is grifting, and you have to grift to stay alive. That's why I hate this fucking moral purity shit on the right. You let people have their gambling promotions, dude. Motherfuckers gotta eat. You like hearing someone rip the N-word and call somebody a faggot on stream? dude, somebody, you got to shill a gambling platform. But you know what? The only difference between, Kaleshi, Robin Hood, or even these guys like Stake or whatever, it's just your odds are better in some other place. But the thing is that the stock market is just as much of a Ponzi. That's the thing people don't understand. Crypto is as much of a Ponzi as financial systems are. It's just another financial system. And people need to understand you cannot and you cannot and should not trust these institutions with your money. You cannot do that. People need to understand there is no reserves in the banks. Fractional reserve banking doesn't exist. Since 2020, they have taken away the reserve requirement for banks. They don't have to keep anything there. Your money is not in the banks. Do you know what the repo market is? The repo market is like the plumbing system for the financial system, okay? The repo market is where banks go when they need liquidity. The repo market is empty. People have no idea because it's so convoluted. Why is it so convoluted? Because if people understood how it worked, the whole thing would go down in flames tomorrow. The repo market was flooded with all that cash that they printed during COVID, and it's out of the money. The Federal Reserve has now had to essentially print twice and inject billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars into the repo market because the plumbing of our financial system is stock dry. What we're watching with the Trump administration, what we're watching with everyone is a final mass extraction before it all comes crumbling down. And I know I sound crazy to someone who, just came off the street. If you don't know who I am, yeah, I'd probably sound like an insane motherfucker. But listen, I'm begging you to understand what's going on because this is not about money for me. I've given up everything. I have torched nothing matters in my life anymore but getting people to understand what's coming because so many people will be unprepared. So many people will lose their homes, will lose their livelihoods, will lose everything, will kill themselves, will take this out on people who don't deserve it. And if I can just wake one person up to the reality of what's happening in our country, then I can die happy. And, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm tired of this, man. I can't live in this fake system anymore.
Yeah, and I think, it's kind of funny. You started off with, you're tired of this fake morality, and then you kind of ended with kind of your own morality. And I like that. There is an aspect where it's like, there's this spectrum that we're on. People in church and people that, derive their morality from Christianity. There's a sense of when you die, when your ego dies and your need to be, perceived by the world as good or bad and or successful or not. When that dies, you become spiritually enlightened. At least that's what we're led to believe. But actually, I don't believe that that's entirely true because it has to be some type of spectrum. Otherwise, if you have no ego, why are you going to wake up and brush your teeth? Why are you going to eat? I mean, if you're going to heaven, why not just stop eating right now, die, and then go to heaven? Right? It makes no sense. So what I'm saying by that is that there's a spectrum. Being on this earth is complicated. And if you want to survive, you got to kill animals in order to eat. You got to do things in life in order to survive. In order to pass on your genes, you have to commit an act with a woman, right? And so there's this discretion within the Bible and what Jesus talks about. That's not all about right and wrong. It's about discretion. And I think that's the real key term there is balance and discretion. And what you're talking about right now in politics is the same exact thing. There is a need. People, they wield morality, right? Like Machiavelli says, they use it as a weapon. If you can't see that clearly and when people are doing that, I'm sorry, but you're just dumb. You're not smart. And people do it. They've done it for a long time. It's been really egregious. I think our younger people now, like yourself, you're seeing it and we look at it and go, okay, buddy. Like they get up on the political stand and they're like, God this, God that, and I'm a Christian. And it's just like, okay, look, we want to win. You know what's the best morally God thing to do? Win for our people and make sure that, like what Lucas is saying, doesn't hurt as many people as possible. Take responsibility as a man for your tribe. That's what you have to do. And that's what I can tell Lucas right here is doing. I can see it in his eyes. I hear what he's saying and I go, wow, this is somebody who's taking the ultimate responsibility. And not just that. And I've only talked with Lucas for just as much as you guys have. You guys are listening to him. But another thing he said that was key was in the beginning, he doesn't care anymore. He's let it burn down, right? He's died when it comes to this thought process that he had before, his old self, right? He's died to that old self. He's now in his new self, right? He's in his winter arc. And
yeah.
And man, that's good to hear. I feel the exact same way. Like I feel like you have to stop playing by these old rules, these old political rules. And I think we're doing that right now with like in the US, we'll kind of branch off into some of the America First political topics, one being the foreign policy. That's kind of what the main focus is, at least recently, about foreign policy. We're taking away from all these little democratic, we call them democratic fights that we have all around the world, and we're shifting all of our focus into, coming up against our number one arch enemy, or at least our adversary, China, right, in the Pacific.
Well, I would say the Jewish oligarchy is a bit more of a threat right now. Look, here's what I'll say
100%.
about the foreign policy initiatives that we're seeing right now. We're seeing a lot of people talk about mass immigration and H-1B visas and this and that. And this is really to address the left, right? Because the left is always like, well, we need to welcome them in, da 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 da. A lot of these immigrants don't want to be here. You know why they're here? Because certain people have encouraged us to go into their country and destroy it. You know how many of these Venezuelans would love to go back to their country if only it wasn't Nicolas Maduro, if only the U.S. wasn't about to carpet bomb their shit. These people, a lot of them want to go home. And I think as Americans, we should say America first does not only mean fuck you, don't come in our country. Don't get me wrong, it does mean that, but it also means, well, did we fuck up your country in the first place? And if so, let's actually fix our problems. Instead of taking $300 billion and giving it to Israel, why don't we go rebuild the places that we have completely destroyed? A good example of that is in South Asia. The United States dropped so much Agent Orange during Vietnam, in Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam area, that there is still genetic defects happening. There's still contaminated areas. I think as Americans, we need to not only accept that our country is the greatest country on the face of this earth, it is the greatest civilization to exist since the Roman Empire. We can exist with that reality, and we can also exist with the reality that we have done incredibly terrible things. We need to accept our country's sins. We cannot just sit here and grandstand morally about this and that without also saying, and we've had mistakes. They crucified a perfect man. But our country is certainly not perfect. And so to everyone who's talking about this foreign policy, I say, in order to create a true America First movement that really sees it through, that really does the mass deportations, we cannot have performative cruelty like we're talking about right now with all this, this Instagram edits of ICE agents going to deport someone's abuela. Nobody likes that. Okay, maybe these people who harbor genuine racial hatred like that, I don't like that. You know what I want to see? I want to see an administration that goes and does this the right way, that does it in large quantities and doesn't make it a spectacle. It serves no purpose if you're not really going to do it.
I think you're exactly right. We know what he's doing, right? That's why I posted something yesterday, which was like, I would have deported Ilhan Omar by now. And it's like, but we know why we know why he's not doing that. And we know why he's making a spectacle of all this ICE agents, because he's a campaigner. Trump is a very good marketer. And if you look at everything he does, it always has marketing in mind, which is great. But sometimes the operational manager has to get in and say, okay, that's great. Marketing's great. But sometimes it comes at a cost. Right now, though, those ICE edits, which I do like them, I think they're cool. But you're right. You're exactly right. So we're doing something that can potentially break up families and stuff. We've got to be men about it, really, quite, just to be like totally frank, be men about it. Take these people out at mass quantities and kind of make our nation what it once was. But that gets kind of into another thing that I'd like to talk to you about, because I know we kind of disagree on this one thing, which is kind of the racial makeup of America. We talk about like America first, and you're putting America first, but who's to say who is American, who's not, if we have no borders? So the first thing would be to strengthen our borders. And now we are where we are today, which is where we have a declining white race in our country, the founding people of this nation. And it's complicated. There's blacks and Hispanics and Asians who contributed, but nonetheless, we were a majority Christian white nation. Now, what do you say to that? Do you agree that we are a Christian white nation, or?
I think America has always been a nation of Western descent. But to say that it was always a white Christian nation is to overlook the indigenous people who we came up and ran their shit, because that's just how it goes. It's to ignore the enslaved people who were brought over here by, again, a lot of these Jewish oligarchs and then made to work our fields before eventually becoming semi-citizens. And even now they're still feeling the effects of that. And that goes back to what I said before about, we cannot sit here and pretend like America has not committed great sins, because to deny that would be to deny the love for our country and the ability to fix those things. So while I don't think it's not illogical or immoral to say, hey, I really don't want to live in the hood. I don't want to live around a bunch of raggedy ass hood ratchet black people. That's not that's not controversial to say in 2025. It shouldn't be. Because on the other hand, we need to balance that with saying our black people are suffering. I went to a majority black high school. We had a thing called Fight Day, where all the black students would fight each other en masse, and there would be weave and trash thrown all around. They would pepper spray people, and we would lock the school down. That is the kind of stuff that we're fighting against. And it's ironic, if you actually talk to an African guy, there's a lot of good Christian Africans I have met who absolutely despise black culture in America. And I think it's important to say our black people are hurting and they're suffering. Why is that happening? Who's perpetrating that? I believe they were set up as a people. And so to say that America is a white Christian nation, yes, but it can also be a nation of other people. Not to say that it's a melting pot like, Jewish marketers would have you believe, but America, even if we said, okay, let's take the most radical ethno-nationalist Christian conservative worldview, the unfortunate reality is that the demographics in this country will not and cannot be saved. The white birth rate is too low. There are too many people here of too many different cultures, and they have too much political power. I don't think that means that we need to give them America, because at the end of the day, I saw what happened to Canada. I have been to London multiple times last year. That place has completely fallen. London has fallen. I think people don't understand, and they need to see it with their own eyes. I thought it was fear-mongering until I got there and I realized, oh my fucking God, this place is not England. So to answer your question, yes, but also no, if that makes any sense.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, there's a balance in between. It's like some of the, there's pro-white people that are in my circle, of course. And, I'll be honest with you, I have problems with them. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The reason why our birth rate is low is because we're not impregnating our women, Like, whose fault is that? Like, honest to God, like, whose fault is that? And then you sit online and they're typing, oh my God, he said that he'll work with a Mexican guy. Oh my God, Nick Fuentes is a Mexican. And then they don't do a god dang thing to do anything. Like, literally, there's people out here risking their reputation, burning it down like Lucas, and they're sitting there and they're mad at me. They get mad at me. And I'm like, bro, I literally come on the line and say all day, I love white people. They're the best people, which I still believe that. And yet, they still attack me. It's like, bro, how? I mean, there gets to a point where it has to be a balance. America is a Western descended people, I'll say, and I think it is for white people. But let's just talk about this. We have two directions we can go in. Kick everybody out. Our population will drop by whatever percentage, and we'll have a pure white nation just like what they would want it, and it'll cause massive issues and everything else. Or we can go another route. And then the white people that get that treatment will probably be weak because we're going to be given a lot of stuff. We're going to be given a lot more property. We're going to be given in America. We're going to be given all these things. Or we can go the other route, which is to actually go on the inside, turn the camera around to ourselves and go, hey, there's a lot of white guilt that we were subjected to. And the reason why our birth rate is down is in part because of our own problems that we got manipulated. Yes, you can blame the manipulator, 100%, we do. But also you have to say, but why'd you get manipulated, and how can we not get manipulated in the future? And that's what we have to do.
If I can interject here, my biggest problem with people blaming the Jews for everything is that it lets the people who sold us out get off scot-free. And it's the same thing I've been saying with the reason that I think America First is not really reaching the masses because it needs to. But I think the reason that it's not is because we're not willing to reconcile with the negatives or the sort of other side of the coin of these issues, where it's like, did a lot of the Zionists come through and destroy and raise this country and extract it for resources? Yes. But who let them do that? Who sold us out? It's not, you have to invite the devil in. Okay, it's like when the vampire knocks on the door. I want to come inside your house. I want to pay you with APAC money. It's exactly this. And so we have to understand that you cannot not hold these people accountable. I would like to. You ever heard about this study called Mouse Utopia?
Yes, I have. But go ahead and explain it. Go ahead and frame it. That'd be great.
So I would like to say, maybe for your viewers who haven't seen, Mouse Utopia was this amazing experiment where they essentially gave these mice a giant cage, infinite food. It was incredible abundance.
Female rats, that's a big part of it.
Yes, they gave them infinite access to sex, to food, to land. And these mice exploded in population, much like we did at the end of the 20th century. And then immediately we saw the birth rate decline. The rats became trannies and fucking gay, and No, seriously. And the female mice became butch lesbians and started getting aggressive, and there were incel mice. And it's like, at some point, we have to understand that this is what happens when there is too much physical decadence with no spiritual sort of sharpening of the sword. And I would argue that, like, this is the result. It just so happens to be this is the result, you know?
Oh, okay, I was confused. I thought you were talking about this is a different. I was talking about the study where they took rats and they put them in a cage with toys and females, and they gave them one water bottle with Coke in it and one water bottle that was just normal.
Oh, no, no, no. This is completely different. This is like I'll send you a video on it. It was a very like famous study from the 1970s. It was a
So
study in how animal populations react to infinite abundance with no
yeah.
struggle. And it was exactly what happened to us.
So pretty much what you're saying is what we've all known for a long time, which is good times create weak men, essentially.
That's a bit of a reductionist take. I would argue that actually it's more of a life is not about being comfortable. Being comfortable, being given everything, it creates a sense of meaninglessness, of inherent meaninglessness that manifests itself in very harmful ways to our society. It
Yeah.
manifests it through the promotion of degeneracy
Yep.
and sort of this kind of like spiritual sickness. It manifests itself through the sexual dysfunction, the collapsing role of the man, and thus the collapsing role of the woman, because ultimately, people want to sit around and blame these fucking women for being so fucked up. And I think that's a little bit of a terrible take because, I mean, look, I think, how do I say this? Women do have a sense of agency, but they are still slaves to their ultimate cutout from God. And women are a reflection of the society. Why do you think they're so terrible now? It's because the men are so terrible. We have to hold the frame. If men don't hold the frame, women will end up just like this. And that's the unfortunate truth.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Great perspective on that. I think you're exactly right. Yeah, it bugs me. I mean, it's something that I really hold dear to my heart. My own people. I've gone out on a limb online, and I've ruined a lot of my relationships with a lot of people. Which, if they're listening, I don't care at all. If I can't get online and say that I'm proud to be white and that makes you mad, then I don't care. Don't talk to me anymore. But that being said, you get to this place where you've done that, and then to get hate on the people that also are pro-white, you go, what? Wait, so what is your idea of what we're supposed to do? Like, what do you want to? So you just want to do nothing? That's your idea? That's your great plan, is to do nothing and hope some savior comes and saves you? It's not going to happen. We have to compete. We have to win for real. We have to impregnate our women. And the only way to do that is to be a man and be charming like Lucas. So that being said, so we talked about financials, we talked about a little bit of foreign policy, we talked about kind of the current state and the demographics, and you kind of explained it really good. And I'm actually going to dive deeper into that a little bit. When we were talking about, if we did say we did kick out everybody, right? And it's like, well, then the white people would there'd be this utopia and that would weaken us, right?
Look,
And
I'm going to say something here, and people are going to say this is controversial. I'm not shilling for H-1Bs right now, but I mean, dude, have you seen a couple of white boys get on a roof lately? I'll tell
yeah,
you something. My best friend is a contractor, okay? He's like a general contractor. I have never seen, and he would rather hire American guys. I have never seen a white boy get on a roof. And I'm not going on a roof. I worked very hard to not have to go on a roof so I could do something online, so I could do something with my mind. But like, dude, it starts
okay,
with us. It
yeah,
starts with
yeah,
us.
that's the key.
If we want to sit here and say, we don't want these people in our country, two things needs to happen. These corporations need to be forced to pay a living wage, and
Mhm.
we as men need to start being men again. And I know that's difficult when we've lost any sense of masculinity, when they've
Yeah,
stripped all father figures from our lives of what a man
yeah.
should be. It's up to us to learn how to be a man, to learn how to do these things, and to build a stronger country. It starts with us. So I
Yeah.
totally agree with you.
Yeah, so let me make it very clear to everybody listening, because I know people are going to comment on me about this right here. Lucas is not saying white people can't do those things or will not do those things. He's saying that the environment that we're in right now is not conducive to doing those things, and we want to change that. The way you change that, the way you reverse the birth rate, is not by telling everybody, sorry, everybody go build a farm and have 9 kids. No one's going to do it. It's just not going to happen. You will fail. You will look like a fool, and everyone will laugh at you, and you will lose. That's it. You'll just lose. So what we are arguing is that maybe we should start somehow figuring out how to financially benefit mothers and fathers who have kids somehow. Maybe tax benefits more than they are. Who knows what we can do? There's been a talk about, past regimes that have, give
Very
loans to
based.
right to give loans to families.
People want to hate on Hitler, but like if you look at the policies that he implemented for the German people, the dude was based. Can we just admit that? Can we agree some of the stuff Hitler was doing was based? Nobody is advocating for what he did, okay? I think we can all say that, or okay, some people are, but I'm not advocating for that. What I am
Wait, what did he
advocating
do?
for,
Wait a minute. What did he do?
well, even that is debatable. But what I'm advocating for is people and policies that put Americans first. And part of that is we need to have massive tax incentives. And in some cases, even some cases like what President Trump is doing, paying people to have children. I believe that the greatest sort of crowning gem of a society is how do we treat the youth? Because ultimately, I know we all love AI. And sure, that's the future in some respect, but our children are our future. I want to build a society. I want to build a country where I can have a daughter and not have to worry about her walking home from work or school. I want to build a country where we can rely on each other in a high trust environment. I want to build a country where you can retire with dignity. I want to build a country that supports its people. I think we should have single payer healthcare, healthcare for all, Medicare for all. I think we need those things. And, if I had to sit here and say, this is my position, that's my position, you might say, well, this guy sounds like a leftist. Oh, well, this guy sounds like an alt-right troll. Oh, well, this guy sounds like an enlightened centrist. And the truth is, I'm none of those things. I'm an American populist. I'm an American nationalist. And part of that means putting our children first, putting our women first, putting us first before anyone else. And I think we can have discussions about race. We can have discussions about identity, about this and that. All of that can start when we have a real system to argue about that in, and we don't have that right now.
Yeah. It's like newsflash, the world's a little complicated if you haven't seen, and we have to take with what we got and then make the best decision based on what we know. And what we know is this. The reason why our population increased so much all the years of being, white people taking over the world, Europeans taking over the world, right? Was because we all, majority, were doing, farming and things like this. And a child was able to help out on the farm. So you could have like 9 kids and you were benefited financially from having kids.
Dude, my mom, she's one of 8 children. She was raised on a farm with nothing in rural Alabama, in Rabbit Town, Alabama. Okay. The KKK showed up on my mom's doorstep as a child, trying to get my grandfather to come out there and join the rally. My grandfather said no, by the way. But look, my mom grew up with nothing in that lifestyle. I've seen what it takes to do that. And I'm talking about me and probably everyone else I know. We are not doing that, dude, right now. Like we're just not. Okay. We need to understand where we are. People always want to say, we need to do this. We need to do that. Well, what are you doing about it? Are you going to go, like you said,
and then they don't
farm?
do the dang thing. Yeah.
And I think, and my chat always asks me, like, what the fuck are we supposed to do about this shit, dude? Like, I'm sitting here, 8-hour Goyim shift. I'm sitting here. What am I going to do about this? You're telling me that all this shit's wrong. What do we do about it? This is what we do about it. And I think now would be the perfect time to get into what I'm doing about it and talk about some of the stuff that's happening in Florida, which is where I'm from. You need to get off your ass and go organize. You need to get off your ass and go organize, whether that means making edits for far-right politicians, getting your ass up and going to knock doors, going to like your local conservative or even leftist organizations, because at this point, it doesn't matter. People need to let go of this left and right shit. You need to get off your ass and start caring, because we're in the 9th inning. We're in the final hour of America. Like, this is the ember of what America could have been. We're watching it slip through our fingers. And if you don't do something about it, and all you do is sit there and scroll, then you're part of the problem.
We need our talented people to get involved. That's what we need. And you're exactly right, Lucas. When you talk about organizing locally and you got your things going on, I'm organizing locally as well, trying to take over the Republican Party here with an America First Christian nationalist group. And, it really is true. I know I've said this 1,000 times now on the show, but man, I can't stress enough how it annoys me how we get hate, or they hate on us trying to do the things that we're doing because they're so critical. It's like, oh, you worked with that guy and that guy was a Mexican. I mean, if you think that, then fuck you. How about that? Because I'm so tired of any time that we go to do anything, it gets destroyed before it even gets off the ground. That's the surest way that we're all going to lose. That's the surest way that white people will go extinct. So please, for the love of God, stop doing that.
You know what's funny? Dude, this is what they want. You know why? And I'll tell you why, in my opinion, that they've allowed Nick Fuentes to exist. Because for all of Nick's, and he's coming around to this, for all of Nick's wonderful takes, he is still ultimately a destructive force, which is good. The problem is that you cannot create anything with destructive energy. Now, I think he's coming around to this. I think he's realized this kind of, I don't think he's going to say it, but I think he's realized that this movement has to be post-racial. It has to be. I'm sorry, that's the truth. You know, nothing will get done while we argue about race. The people who want us to argue about race, the Zionists, are going to walk away with every red cent in this country and leave us to a swarm of Indian people before too long. So I don't care if someone, well, this guy looks brown, this guy looks this or that. I could give two fucking shits. I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck, dude. We need to save this country. Okay. Like I said, we can argue about all this after we get rid of the Zionists, after we burn this system to the ground, metaphorically speaking. Okay. I've been subpoenaed by the FBI before, so I need to say that. We need to put Americans first, and that's the end of the story. Okay, I don't think that's a controversial thing to say, but somehow it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a balance, it's a little bit of a spectrum, right? I think, like you said, you're a race realist, and I think that's the place you need to take. You need to say that's the position I take, right? It's not, oh, who cares about race entirely? Of course not. We're not saying that. We're not going to go. That's kind of what our whole movement, a lot of our movement's about, you know. But also, that being said, you're not going to see somebody, and because they're not exactly 100, they have brown eyes. Oh no, you can't do. I mean, it's just silly. That's just insane. And we need to get better. And you can't get better. You can't show up to work. And a lot of these guys, you know, they have jobs, and they're telling me that, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that podcast because that girl was, you know, this or that or whatever. And then but then they go to work the next day, and it's like there's a bunch of Mexicans where they work. Okay, so you're gonna not go to work? Like what? What are you gonna do? Not go to work? But there's a bunch of Mexicans. Are you helping them? Are you, you know? Come on, that's just retarded. That makes no sense. You can't be so exclusionary that you don't exist. But, you know, that being said, you know, we are, I do believe we come from, like you said, a nation that's from the Western, you know, from Europe. We're a bunch of we're a pan-Euro nation, which is really awesome. We don't want to invade our nation with a bunch of people that are not pan-European. I mean, simple as that.
That's the truth, man. And look, that's not to say that we should not and cannot have people from other countries, because I do think that to some extent, like, immigration is cool.
You're saying like maybe 1%?
Even less than that. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, I went to Dubai and I got a chance to see what they're doing over there. I became a 2-year resident because I spent a lot of time working there. I got to see how it is. And actually, you know, people are very critical of Dubai. But to be honest with you, I see a lot of potential in what they're doing, because to become a citizen of Dubai is impossible. You must have one parent who is Emirati by blood. You have to be an Emirati. You can come stay there. You can come live there. You'll never have representation. You will never be a citizen. I'm not opposed to having a system where you can come in, work, live in this country, but you are not American, so you do not get representation, and you have to pay to be here. That's entirely fair. Why is that controversial? I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, I love that you just said that right there, because that's a perfect example. What you just said is the exact ideal scenario that a lot of the white nationalist people want to inflict. And I agree with that too. I'm 100% on board with that. And actually, our political route to get there is on track. We're the movement. We're the ones with the motion. And yet you see a group telling everyone the exact same thing that you want, that has the motion, but because they don't disavow every single person that has a little darker brown hair than you like, then you're going to disband them. To me, that's just disgusting and just straight up stupid. I mean, honestly. Okay, we're done talking about that. I know we can go on all day about that, but let's move on to more of the stuff you're doing with your local organizing. You know, you're from Florida, and in Florida, there seems to be a candidate that is America First. Did you want to kind of give us a little synopsis on what's going on?
So, you know, Florida is in a very interesting place because it's the proving ground for what the next future of the Republican Party is going to look like, at least the next couple of years to a decade or so. And right now in Florida, it's probably the most critical election of the next couple of years, probably up until the presidential run, because Florida is a beacon of light for the nation. I've met Governor DeSantis. I've been to some events with him and his team. I have seen what he has done for Florida. We have passed legislation for Florida Florida is and has been the freest state in the union. We were the only state that stayed open during COVID. That was incredibly difficult. Governor DeSantis fought for Florida. What we're fighting for Florida right now is to have a continuation of that, because there is a current kind of like split, a three-way split between the sort of establishment candidate Byron Donalds, who I have been attacking on social media nonstop. We will get into that. Jay Collins, and the America First candidate James Fishback. Now, I kind of saw Fishback when he announced his campaign about 2 weeks ago on Twitter. I said, who the hell is this guy? Why haven't I seen him before? And I saw he was holding a local event in Gainesville at the University of Florida. Okay, this is our, kind of midway point in the state for those who don't know. So I'm in Orlando. It was about a 2-hour drive. I said, all right, fuck it. I'm going to take all my boys, take my brothers, take my buddies. We're pulling up. So we pull up to the event, whatever. I had texted James before. I said, hey, man, I just saw your thing. I'd love to come check it out. Would you rip a TikTok with me? And he was like, yeah, sure. Come see me after the event. I got to the event. Man, this was hosted by the UF, college Republicans. Shout out to the boys. Shout out to Sam for hosting the event, for filming the event. It was a great event. I got to see what the future of America First is. And man, it was exciting. Like, I have not felt that energized by a politician since Donald Trump in 2016 when he came down that escalator, since Bernie Sanders, even since Andrew Yang, when he first started talking about, AI and automation. I was actually, you can find this in the donor records. I was a large contributor to Andrew Yang's political campaign at the age of 18. I have been early to all this shit my entire life. Like, I'm just like schizo like that. And so I felt very, sort of called by God to help James Fishback with his campaign, because Florida is going to set the tone for the rest of the nation. We are running up against an opponent, Byron Donalds, who is completely owned by organized Jewry. He is completely owned by AIPAC. He has sold out our country. Every single one of you should be furious. This man cannot be allowed to be governor. I have unleashed a flurry of social media attacks attacking Byron Donalds on his stance on H-1B visas, on his stance on mass immigration, his stance on crime. He himself has a criminal past. And ultimately, he has taken money from the very people who are trying to rip Florida apart, and I will not stand for it.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I love the edits. They're looking great. Yeah, so this is kind of where the America First movement kind of starts. That's the first America First candidate that we see, that I've seen. And yeah, I really enjoy a lot of his stuff. Some of the things that I'm kind of doing in my local area, I'll just talk a little bit about what I'm kind of going through. I'm trying to take over the Young Republicans. You said that Fishback was hosted by the College Republicans. So I'm guessing the College Republicans are now kind of shifting to America First type stuff.
They did invite every candidate, so it's not like it was exclusive, but I would definitely say that they're excited to have James there. Obviously, I can't speak for them. I'm not a student. I was a guest there. But they're holding really quality events. I think they had like Elijah Schaefer there, a few other people. So they're holding very open forums, kind of in the spirit of what Turning Point was originally supposed to be. Rest in peace to Charlie Kirk, of course. But they're really doing stuff that I've never seen at any other campus. And they actually said they were going to put me in touch with the people here in Orlando. So I'll let you know how that chapter goes too.
Okay. So I'm pretty much doing a similar thing in our little county. We're kind of like one of the last red strongholds in California. And
oh my
we
God,
have a
you're from
bunch of,
California?
yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Well, I'm from the Central California, and after the redistricting that just passed Prop 50, I'm like in the last. You know who Kevin McCarthy is?
A name rings a bell, like McCarthyism.
Not McCarthyism. This is Kevin McCarthy. He was the Speaker of the House a few years ago. Matt Gaetz got him kicked out. He was the third most
Okay.
powerful. Yeah, he's real
Yes.
deep in the establishment and stuff like that. But that's where he's from, is Kern County, where we're from. It's kind of last red stronghold. We have a Young Republicans group. How the Republicans get elected, and about local politics, they use the Young Republicans to fund, to get door knockers, do a lot of things. But in our party locally, they're using that club as kind of like a slush fund just to enrich them. And they're getting people elected to like school board that are voting to keep transgenders in high school sports. Like, not Republican. They just say they are so they can get the money, because we live in a Republican county, and it's all the consultants trying to make money. They're not helping the younger people. I was the vice chair for a while. I try to do events and organize things and get people interested in politics, and they would always undermine me and not have any resources for us, even though we raised the money, even though I raised the money. And this just really frustrated me On top of, I started my podcast. They didn't want me to talk about Israel. They didn't want me to talk about the Jews. They didn't want to talk about nothing. And they're, all their candidates are given money by AIPAC and everybody else. And so this is kind of cool because the revolution, the America First wave, is kind of starting to rear its head. I actually have a meeting tonight. There's an election for the Young Republicans tonight in my hometown. We are going to go and we are going to show up. They've already told us they're not going to allow us in, even though we're members, even though we're a registered Republican. We meet the complete requirements, but they're just randomly not allowing any of us to join because they don't want to lose their hold on the club. So we are going to show up with the media, with people that are on social media, and we're going to pray in the parking lot and say, hey, we're here. And when they walk to their cars, we're going to say, what's going on? We have people that are trying to get involved. We're America First. Why are you denying our right to be in this club? And we'll see how that goes. But that being said, one of the things that we're kind of pushing, America First is a very much Christian movement. And that's not to say like we're some moral movement. I'm saying we're going to use morality because that's just low IQ, stupid talk like we just spoke about. But one of the things that we will recognize, that I recognize, especially in my local party, is that the church is really good at doing stuff. They've done it for thousands of years. They're able to take care of homeless people and drug addicts, and they have a better rate of doing it than any 26-year-old with a master's degree who decides, I know how to fix the drug epidemic. We just have to give clean meth pipes to all the drug addicts. That's how you do it. And we know that doesn't work, and it's stupid, and it's just it's a money funneling cycle for all the politicians is what it is. They create nonprofits to do the work. Why not instead take the money we get from the government, our tax-paying money, give it to the churches, and then the churches will have the resources to solve those problems at mass scale. This would do two things. It would, one, be one more check against the power circle that is not NGOs, right? Nonprofits, because we all know the money comes from the state, goes to the politician, then it goes to the nonprofit, and then the nonprofit gives to the person who gave them the contract with the politician for when their next election cycle goes on, right? That's kind of the circle of the scam or the corruption in America. Although it's legal, you can do it. It's not corruption because it's legal. But so what we would do is just, instead of the nonprofit, you would just put the church in that position. So it would have one more group that it'd have to go through before making decisions. And that group would be the congregation, the community, the actual people that live there, not some cousin of the politician from San Francisco or whatever. And anyway, and we're not doing that because also it's just to get out of corruption. It's also because they're the best at doing the job. The government should be like any other business. When I'm going to hire somebody to, I don't know, say, do my flooring in my house, I want to hire who does it for the best price and who does the best job. That's just business 101. Our politicians are not doing that at all. They're not doing
Unfortunately,
it.
if you tried to do that right now, you're going to end up with an illegal immigrant in your kitchen. I'm just saying, goes back to what we said before. I want to interject here. Here's my argument to that. We in America need to redefine what being a Christian is. And what I mean by that is, let me take an example from recent cultural memory. There was a woman who called a list of every religious organization in her local area and said, I have a starving baby, will you feed them? And you know what the overwhelming majority of these churches in her area, now this is, one video, I'm not going to say it represents all churches, there was a lack of humanity, a lack of Christian values that was incredibly disappointing. And you know who did? You know who did say, we'll have you taken care of right now? The local masjid, which is where people who practice Islam go to pray, the mosque. They were the ones who actually took care of the starving infant, and that was a huge thing. Christianity in America is defined by people like Kenneth Copeland. They have these signals of opulence, these mega churches that are really more like theme parks. People who, there's like a huge overlap between Disney adults and people who go to these mega churches, people who go to these churches that instead of putting, these people, they're doing the whole like, oh, we're doing the preaching about, what's it called? Like the money preaching, whatever the fuck, prosperity preaching. They're like, oh, this and that. What we need to do is really focus on highlight those churches. And I would go so far as to say all religious organizations who are willing to feed a starving infant and who are willing to uphold Christian values in any sense of the word. Because, there's that famous saying, ain't no hate like Christian love. And that is sadly the truth. I want to live in a country where my church is going to take care of a starving infant. I want to live in a country where being a Christian is something to be proud of, where being a Christian means embracing the love of Jesus Christ, embracing the love of God in everything we do. And that does not mean we need to sit around here and circle jerk about this,
Mhm.
about that. It means if someone calls, we help them. We don't
Yeah.
build a monument to our churches, to our congregation. We build it to God, not to the people and the earthly objects.
Oh my gosh, what a great monologue that was. Yeah, that's excellent. Excellent way of putting it. No doubt about it. Actually, so since I've been enacting this plan, I've been going through to all the churches and being like, okay, once we do gonna get into power and we start electing people who do want to replace the nonprofits with the churches, what churches? Because as you know, as you just stated, there are churches who are very not Christian. They just present themselves to be. And man, I have been really surprised by who I have ran into. I mean, I'm having meetings with the pastors and I'm going into their finances and trying to figure out what they're doing, and it's really scary. We have a list in our local area that is all of the churches that have accepted money from Israel and given Israel the data of their churches. And if you notice when you go into churches, a lot of those ones you're talking about, you sign on a iPad on your way in. You check in, and that's what they're doing. They're giving the data to Israel, and then they're going in, and since Israel's giving them money, they're giving all the missionaries free trips to Israel to go and see the Holy Land, to talk good about Israel, and then they go back to church and they spit this doctrine of Israel being the chosen people. And I mean, that's straight up just how I mean, how could a leader of a congregation, a pastor, a man in America fall victim to that? That makes no sense. We
You
have to be
know,
masculine in selecting these churches, no doubt about it.
the devil is often portrayed as this kind of, evil, like scary figure. But the actual thing is that the devil is very seductive. People need to understand what is spiritual warfare. They think about like angels fighting and, fighting demons. And the reality of it is it's a lot more sinister. It's a lot more underhanded. Always question who wants to do this for me and why. You have to let the devil in your house. You have to let the vampire in your house, whatever you want to say. You have to invite them in. If they say, "Hey, we want to take you on a trip to Israel," why would they want to do that? Oh, well, we want to donate to your church. Why do you want to do that? You never take money from somewhere, you never take anything from someone without asking what strings are attached to that, unless you were related to that person, and even then sometimes not that case, or you're married to that person, right? So, and this goes back to what I was saying about Christianity. It has been intentionally corrupted by a lot of these sort of Jewish NGOs. Oh, let's go to Israel, do this and that. And that plants the seeds for Zionism in the minds of these people who are just seeking a place to go and practice their religion in the house of the Lord. And that, I think, is perhaps the thing that really makes me the most angry, because growing up, I didn't have great experiences with Christians because of this kind of stuff. And it really turned me away from researching anything about religion. I had such a negative experience with it. And come to find out, that's exactly what they want. They want it to be cheapened. They want it to be mass manufactured. They want it to be this spectacle. Your relationship with Jesus Christ, your relationship with God should not be a spectacle. That is a deeply personal relationship between you and your Lord. So my point with saying all of this is that we need to redefine what it means to be a Christian in America. I come from a place where the Greek Orthodoxy is very strong. The Greek Orthodoxy and all Orthodoxy, including Russian Orthodoxy and even Catholicism, they remain so strong today because the church resisted these temptations. America has been infected just the same way it has in our food and our culture. It's infected our religion as well.
So true. Man, yep, exactly right. So what I want to do in my local area is probably I'll go and I'll get a list of all the churches, like I said, that I like and that I don't like, and make them like America First approved type thing. And that way, when the politicians do get in line, they will be able to select the ones that are going to help each community and actually do service to the community. And that have good leaders of the churches too. It's just like electing the politicians. You've got to make sure that the people running the churches are also well elected. Right. And those are the pastors. True men of God, true masculine men who take responsibility of their community. I mean, that's what we have to do. That's just the way it is. Never are you going to have any religion or any congregation or any group of people that are all good that you should say, oh, this group gets this because they are this. No, you have to say, no, they get this because they either earned it, they deserve it, or I need them for this particular job that they're doing. Effectiveness is definitely one of the more important things. Yeah, really interesting stuff. I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of how the little things play out with the America First movement. I think there's a lot of cleanup that needs to happen with our group too. Just like you said, with the church or with white people that are weak or anybody like that. It's like even with America First, you've got people who are in America First who are the keyboard warrior types, or they're trying to cheapen the movement or say, oh, they're trying to change the movement and do different things. So we definitely need to. I guess that's our job, right? We're in the media, and so what do? We talk about all the different things that we see and go, that's right, that's wrong, or I don't like that, or I do like that, and that's what you're doing perfectly.
Well, listen, I hate to cut this short. I have to run. I have another show. I pushed it back 15 minutes just so we could get this podcast in. I wanted to leave, if I could, I'll let you wrap it up. Obviously, I wanted to leave your viewers with a little thought bubble here. I know we talked about a lot on the show, and thank you for watching. I really appreciate you, Chance, for giving me the platform here, and I appreciate the conversation. My question to your viewers would be, what are you doing and how much do you understand? Those are the two things I think are important to take away from this conversation, because do you actually understand what's happening in our world, or are you just taking it at face value? Don't be like these pastors who invite the devil in their house. Don't invite the devil in by actually educating yourself. And number two, are you doing what Chance and I are doing, which is going out and affecting your local community? Because nothing will change if you don't do that.
Yeah, that's it, guys. I'll just close with this too. A little something I've been thinking about. We are in a war in the biggest sense. We are in a political war. If you are a pussy, do not contact me. It's as simple as that. Don't contact me. Don't criticize me. Don't try to give me your opinion. Leave me alone. Unless you want to be a soldier and a warrior for God and the church and America, then don't contact me. I don't want to hear what you have to say. You don't have any type of critical knowledge on something that's going to totally change the movement. You need to get out there and get your boots on the ground. And that is what me and Lucas are trying to do. And you sit there and you criticize the way we dress or some crap like that. You're stupid and vile and disgusting. And the biggest problem with America, I'm going to say it, it's the weak men. That is the biggest problem in America. We have to be strong. And being strong means you get out there and do something. Okay, nigga? So this is the Paint the Town Red podcast. We hope you guys have a wonderful day. Make sure you follow, what's his name? What's his first name? Governor Fishback? What's his first name?
James Fishback.
James Fishback from Florida. And make sure you follow Lucas as well. Lucas, what's your Instagram?
Lucas Demos Clips, or at Lucas Demos on X. You can find me. I'm always posting. I'm always active. It's a pleasure to be here. A pleasure to have spoken with you. Let's do this again sometime.
Definitely, Lucas. We're definitely going to have you on. I think you're our longest podcast. 105, I think so. I wish we could do it longer. I could talk to you all day.
I could do it for hours. That's what I do. I come on, I talk for 3-4 hours. We rip it till my mouth's too dry to continue. Thank you, brother. I got to run. It was a pleasure. We'll see you guys around. Let me know. We'll talk more after this. It was a pleasure. Peace out.